please, Professor Anne Brown and Mr. Gil Shwed, for honoring us with their presentation. The topic of cybersecurity is of paramount importance. Upon assuming the role of State Controller of Israel, I established a dedicated cyber audit division within my office due to the critical nature of this issue and the associated risks. Sharing knowledge on cybersecurity among EUROSAI members is one of my significant goals as president. I am proud to be one of the state controllers who engage hackers to test the cybersecurity defenses of the audited entities. I believe it is vital to elevate cybersecurity audits on our agenda and foster knowledge sharing among state auditors, especially given the substantial risks this area presents. In today's digital era, the risks associated with cybersecurity have escalated significantly, particularly concerning the business continuity of public entities and the protection of privacy. As we witness a surge in cybercrime globally, the implications for public organizations are profound. Any disruption can hinder their operations and dismiss public trust. Furthermore, the potential for privacy infringements, such as the misuse of biometric identification and personal data, raises serious ethical concerns. It is our duty as auditors to develop independent audit plans that not only assess current vulnerabilities, but also proactively analyze emerging threats. By doing so, we can contribute to minimizing these risks and enhancing the resilience of the public sector in the face of evolving cyber threats. Thank you all for your participation, and I look forward to engaging discussions this evening. So now I will present Mr. Gil Shwed, who is with us. Mr. Gil Shwed is the founder and chief executive officer of a NASDAQ company, Checkpoint, and he is dealing with cybersecurity for many years. And we are very thankful for you, Gil, being with us tonight. So what I asked and what I thought about this is that we will have a talk. I'll ask him some questions. He'll answer us. So, and you will hear. And later on, if somebody wants to add any answer, any questions, sorry, please, you are mostly welcome. So once again, thank you, Mr. Gil Shwed, for graciously joining us this evening to speak to the EUROSAI Governing Board members about the critical topic of cybersecurity. And I will start with my first question will be a little bit personal. Mr. Shwed, you founded a company from scratch that is now traded in NASDAQ and is now valued at approximately $23 billion. Could you share with us how you first became interested in the field of cybersecurity? What inspired you to pursue this path?
First, good evening to all of you. It's a big honor to be in front of this audience, even though I can't see you, but I assume you're there. And let me give a little bit about my background. Today I'm not that young, but I started my career as a computer kid at the age of 10. Like every Israeli, I went to the military. I served actually in a computer unit and worked on computers. And I knew since a very young age, like since the age of 16, 17, that I want to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur means that I want to build my own product. And I was looking for different ideas. I mean, I never thought I'd be in cybersecurity. Actually, that's almost a coincidence. And then I got an idea about a technology that can secure networks. That was when I was 20. But even though I really believed in that technology, I didn't think that going and convincing big organizations and governments, and I'm talking now about the year around 1990, that their networks are not secure. I thought it's doable, but it's not a very exciting market. And then in 1993, things changed. I was 24 years old. And the things that changed is that I saw the internet beginning to happen. And for me, the internet looks like a huge revolution that would change the world. I think probably in this forum, you can remember what it's like being without the internet. And I felt that's the right time to take my idea, which is how I secure networks that are being interconnected and make them secure together. And that's actually what's happened. Almost every organization that was connected to the internet, their first question was, we want to connect to this massive network. It was an academic network by then, but we want to make sure that people cannot get into our network. And that was my big moment of saying, I got the right solution, I got the right idea, and yes, we can contribute and we can change the world. And I teamed with two friends and we got started. We actually worked for almost 2 years in 3 people, and we were right on the right time because in 1993, the internet started to make its way into becoming the global network that we know today.
Thank you very much. Throughout your remarkable career, you have achieved significant milestones in cybersecurity. Could you highlight some of your key achievements that you believe have had the greatest impact on the industry?
I think the biggest achievement was the fact that we came up with the first product. We were in the first trade show in 1994 in Las Vegas, and we won the best product award. And for me, that was, we were 3 kids, was 25 years old, and being on stage and like being on top of the world, that to me looks like we made a big headway. 3 years later, or 2 years later, in 1996, we became a public company. And since then, for 28.5 years, we are traded on NASDAQ. And that was another milestone. But over the years, I think in tech, it's every year it's new innovation. We've kind of were the first or almost the first to bring to the, of course, we were the first to bring the commercial firewall, what secures networks that are connected to the internet. We were one of the first, if not the first, to make it a virtual private network when all the connection amongst networks are secure and encrypted. And we actually made this platform of a gateway that connects multiple networks into a very strong and robust platform. And almost every year we made new innovations in new technologies that allow us to scan the traffic that goes onto the network and identify threats and stop the threats. Because I think what differentiates us or than many other sectors in cybersecurity is that we don't identify threats, we actually stop them. And that's a big difference between detecting that something is wrong and to actually stopping it, which is very, very critical on the internet.
Thank you. I'll now go a little bit, if you can speak about the cybersecurity risks. In your expert opinion, what are the most pressing cybersecurity risks that organizations and governments face today? How have these risks evolved over time?
The risks are almost unlimited. Actually, when you look about cyber, it's different families of risk. One from espionage and stealing our data. And again, this is very hard because it's very hard to put a price tag on that. When unfortunately, I hope it doesn't happen, but when you broken into your house and somebody, or to the bank and somebody steals the money, you can value the value of the money. But when your personal information is being stolen, and it's now doesn't belong to you, you cannot return it back and you cannot put a price tag on that, and that comes with that trust. So that's one big challenge to cybersecurity. Another one is shutting down critical systems, and unfortunately we see it's happening. Hackers are taking over critical systems and shutting out infrastructure. It can be for a short time, for a long time. It happens almost every day. And I think the big risk is taking down an entire country, or it's not taking down one system for a few hours. That's something that is not nice, but we can deal with. The risk is that we turn it into a real, or not we, but the hackers are turning it into a real battlefield and shutting down infrastructure for a long period of time, or shutting down an entire country. It did happen. It does happen, and it can happen. I mean, with everything from I think the very famous attack in 2017 in Ukraine, where the entire country was shut down, to a couple of years ago when the US and the entire oil network on the East Coast was shut down in the US a few years ago. And of course, many of these attacks happened in different countries. So that's another family of attacks. Of course, there's the more criminal one, ransomware, when people demand ransom to get your systems back to life or to get your data back. So there's a lot of risks involved, and unfortunately, everything that we have digital is an entry point or a launch pad to one of these attacks. And our dependency today on technology, the fact that we are connected in every element that we have, from, from the TV in the room to the mobile device that we carry, and of course, all the servers and personal computers that are connected. But in every room that we have dozens of devices, from the air conditioning systems. Again, you could say what the air conditioning system has to do with it, but if you remember, few years ago, one of the biggest attack was on the retail chain Target in the US, and the attack started by the attackers coming from the air conditioning maintenance company and taking down the cashier machines on all the branches of the company. So it wasn't the main computers or the big database that were attacked, it was the peripheral that were attacked from a backdoor, which is supplier that maintains the air conditioning system, that took down the entire company. And Target was a very famous attack that took the company down for an extended period of time. So almost every element that we have on the infrastructure can be part of the attack, and the total damage, again, it doesn't have to come from the main door. People don't have to take down the main computer system in order to cause that damage.
Interesting. And about the impact of AI on cybersecurity, with the rapid advances in our AI, what new challenges and opportunities do you see emerging in the field of cybersecurity?
So first, I believe it. First, I want to say about my general belief. I'm a big believer in moving forward with technology. I'm a big believer in the internet. Many times you'll see people that are security experts, that their job is to tell you, don't do that, don't do that, don't get connected. When I got into this field of cybersecurity, one of the big differentiators of me and Check Point is that we told people, you can connect to the internet. The internet is a good thing. We will make it secure for you. When most security experts were about, here are the risks, this is why you shouldn't connect, or this is how you should limit your connectivity. So my mantra is use technology, it's good. And I think the same about AI. Now, what does AI does to cybersecurity? A lot of things. First, it can make creating cyber attack much easier for the attackers. If in the past you needed to have certain level or high level of technical expertise to craft an attack, today you can create an attack using AI tools. And as much as we see the generative AI tools as knowing a human language, it's even easier for them to write computer code. So to craft an attack that says, let's write a phishing email, an email that imitates someone. By the way, you look at these emails that we receive every day. Usually you look at the email, and by human eye, you can say, that's a phishing attack because it was written by a person who's not fully literate. You can identify that the English is not perfect or your own language is not perfect. These days are gone. Today, most phishing emails are written by AI and they look super professional. If I want to write an email to my office or to your office, I'll say, write an email from Gil, the CEO of Check Point, to Check Point customers, and I will get an email that looks like it's really mine. And this is really, really scary. And this is the basic. If I now go to the AI tools and say, now write a tool that captures the data we get from a database, that captures the data that gets from the customers, I can, with very limited technical knowledge, I will get all the instructions about how to create this kind of an attack. Of course, I cannot try to tell ChatGPT write an attack. It will say I'm not allowed to do that, but I can trick it, build a database application that collects data, write an email that tells customers not to give their data and to authenticate to the system. By the way, that's the, I mean, it's scary how easy it is to do. You say, Take the largest bank in my country, write an email from the bank CEO to all customers, telling them why security is important and they should update their password. And then you'll get the email that says, never give your data, never share your password, and in order to strengthen the security policy, please update your password here, and you can easily attach it to a simple application that captures the user data. Again, everything written by AI. So AI can be a very scary tool for us because it can enable more sophisticated attacks. As defenders, the power is even bigger because the work of defending, first, there's a huge shortage of people that know cyber, and AI can augment that and can do a great job, especially on the mundane task that require a lot of human intelligence, which is analyzing the events on a system and understanding which one is real, is malicious, and which one is not. And that's something that AI can do in a great way, and in a much better way than human beings, because AI can analyze more data. It never gets tired. It works 24/7. So AI can do a great job.
It's also, it's quite cheap.
Yeah, it's much cheaper than having humans do that. AI, of course, can check and verify the configuration of our system. I mean, we are developing AI applications like that almost on a daily basis that look at different patterns and identify attacks, or that look at the configuration of a system and check it based best practices. By the way, if you look at the work of auditing, that's AI can do a great job in that. You say, take that configuration, compare it to best practices. Even if you tell it nothing, it will bring best practices that it knows. Now, of course, you can tell it what's the best practices, and then you'll get an even better audit. And this is something that will take human beings months and thousands of hours, and AI can do that in a few minutes with few sentences. So that's so AI can be a very, very powerful tool for us in cyber, and I think that in the future it will create a huge revolution. I mean, in many fields, but specifically in the field of cybersecurity.
If I go to respond to incidents, what steps should organizations or governments take when a breach is discovered? What are the most common mistakes organizations or governments or other institutions make in responding to such incidents?
So first, I think the first mistake is looking at cyber like we look at the real world. And in the real world, you look at how our defense system work. We rely on detecting events. Then we call our forces, defense forces, whether it's a police or the army, and try to stop the attack. And this approach, unfortunately, usually doesn't work in cyber because we can't identify all the events because we have many events. I mean, if we look at break-in attempts at every building, we have a security guard that just their presence should make the bad guys go away because they don't want to deal with it. In cyber, it doesn't work. There's no the attackers don't care that there is a security guard in the entrance. They care if they stop them, but they don't care that it's there. And if you look at the real world, how many times somebody tries to break to the building, it rarely happens. It does happen, but rarely. In cyber, a typical organization gets 13,000, 14,000 attacks every week. Real attacks, serious attacks every week that are being stopped, most of them. So that's a serious issue. So the first mistake is responding to incidents rather than preventing the incidents. What we should do is surround ourselves in infrastructure that will simply prevent the attacks. And I think that the cost of that and the benefit of that is far, far higher than say it will never happen to me. And if it will happen to me, I will remediate that. So now, again, it's what I'm saying sounds trivial, but still big parts of the cybersecurity world doesn't think that way. We say our job is to detect attacks and then seeing what happens when the breach is discovered. And in many, many cases, in most cases, it's too late. So that's the common mistake, that we need to invest far more in prevention than in detection.
But once it happens?
It's usually too late, unfortunately.
Okay. If I would like to go furthermore to international cooperation. What role does international collaboration play in the field of cybersecurity? How can countries learn from each other, and share knowledge effectively?
I think first we need to collaborate much more in cyber in general, because it's a borderless world in cyber. Again, if you look at the physical world, we have borders. There are a lot of commonalities between countries. You can learn from one country how to defend against risk. But at the end of the day, in every country, most of the risks are local. And even if they are similar to risk in other places, they are local. In cyber, it's the opposite. Our attackers are everywhere. You know, when we have this threat mapping checkpoint that shows on every screen, you can check it later, threatmap.checkpoint.com, and you can see that the attackers are coming from everywhere and attacking everything. It's borderless. The legal system, the law enforcement system cannot deal with it. And by the way, getting more cooperation between countries on law enforcement can be helpful, but it's still very, very challenging because it's almost always cross-border crimes. And the international cooperation can be how we simply stop the attacks. And that's now, I think the cooperation in our industry should go in all the levels. Within organization, typical organization today have dozens of security technologies. We usually don't cooperate with one another. So I can see a malicious message getting into my organization. I can detect it. I can maybe even stop it. But then it will come up from a different attack vector, and I'll just explain what it is. Somebody will send me an email, my email system, because it's checkpoint, it's great, it will stop that attack. The attacker won't give up. The attacker will send the same message to me on WhatsApp and on Gmail. And these links may not be monitored or controlled by the company, so I'll get the same attack through a different link, and I'll still get hit. So if we get the different systems to understand, here is an attack, we identify it. Now let's block it on all attack vectors. We will get a much higher level of protection. And that's true even within an organization between different security products. Then it goes to the next level of cooperation. And by the way, we do that. When we identify an attack in one place in the world, we stop it everywhere within seconds. So that's so it's and then it can go to cooperation between countries, and by the way, we see that, we alert about that. Our, what I just mentioned the name Threat Cloud, which is our big cloud that connects information from all our customers around the world and identify attacks. We identify attacks. Sometimes it's not even on our customers, and we notify them. And when I'm talking about government-sponsored attack and government victims, it does happen a lot. That one, again, I'm not blaming any country or anything, but organization that we identify as belong to one country attack a different country, whether it's an embassy or an office ministry for espionage. It's a very common thing that we see, unfortunately, in the world. And sometimes we even detect it when we are not at the customer. We just see it from another source.
Even going back to critical infrastructure within our countries, how can we protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks?
That's a very important.
Would you recommend?
First, that's a very, very important task, and task that's not covered enough, because as I mentioned, most countries and most organizations do a good job protecting their big, data centers. So, and if I look at governments, the modern countries, their big data center, their big government offices are protected in a decent way. What's unprotected is the entire periphery. And the periphery is how all the electrical switching boards are connected, about how all the trains are connected, about all the water pumps in the country. They're usually distributed, they are usually connected, and they are usually almost completely unprotected. And that's the critical infrastructure. And we need to do a far better job protecting this infrastructure. And again, I'm talking about real world attacks that we see every day. In the last few years, Israel was attacked on an ongoing basis by Iran, and I'm talking about Israel water infrastructure. And the strange thing was that people were coming in the office, people that manage a water irrigation system and water reservoir, seeing that the water parameters are not exactly right, the salt level is not right. We were fixing that, we were trying to understand what's wrong, and this was Iranian that got into their system and over the weekend messed up with it. The cost to defend it could have been very, very small, far less than what in the example of Israel, Israel invested in retaliation and attacking back and so on. And yet nobody did anything because nobody thought it's their responsibility. I mean, we alerted, we talked about different agencies. And again, the same agencies were very well protected on their data center, but all the periphery wasn't protected. So I think a weak link is the critical infrastructure that we have. And again, as I said, it's road, it's water, it's oil, it's every distributed system that we have. These systems are usually not protected at the right level.
If we want to prepare ourselves to the future, what are your predictions for the future of cybersecurity? What changes do you foresee in the field over the next decade?
First, it's not going to get easier. The attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated. You know, 5 years ago, we've talked about the 5th generation of cyber attacks. Attacks that are not taking one victim or one system. Victim, it can be one system. I'm going to this server, it's not protected well enough, I'm taking it down. But attacks that get from one system to another system and take control over an organization. Attacks that are very hard to identify, the attack that what we call polymorphic. Many times the way to identify an attack is that we see a pattern, we say, if we see that pattern, that's an attack, let's stop it. What the attackers are doing things that are polymorphic, that look differently every time. Think about the suspect, you know, in the border control, we have pictures and IDs of the suspects. Think about suspects that look differently every time. They take a different face, a different ID every time they come through border control. This is how modern cyber attack looks like today. So we need different patterns to identify them. We call it behavioral analysis, sandboxing technologies. There's many technologies that we use to identify them rather than the pattern of we've seen that suspect before. I think we need far better cooperation. I think we need to defend ourselves at every level. As I mentioned, the organization in many cases do a good job defending the big systems, but the attack can come from the small one. And I'll give you an example. Ministry of Interior Affairs probably defends the database of all the citizens in the country in a decent way. Again, check it while checking it, but usually they do a good job. But when I register my daughter to school and I ask to give all my personal details and a copy of my government ID and a copy of my pictures and my daughter pictures to the school, I just know that the school is not protected. I just know that they just took Google Docs and opened an app, and it's fairly easy to break into that system. By the way, when it happened to me a couple of years ago, when I had to register my daughter, I said, what should I do? I know I'm a parent, I need to register my daughter. She should go to school next week. And at the end of the day, I just sent an empty page and says, that's my ID. It's still accepted there. So I was lucky. But again, it can be summer camp, it can be kindergarten, it can be anything. And through that systems, organization accumulate huge amounts of data. And when this data is stolen, it's our identity. It's the same identity that can be stolen by the big systems that are in many cases better protected. And again, this can be done by first better protecting everything, or by just saying, don't ask for personal data. Register a kid to school without asking for the pictures and the IDs, and don't store them electronically, because storing them electronically is risk that the school district or a local municipality cannot be in charge of. So that's kind of some of the tricks. I have a lot of other recommendations. Again, they tend to be very technical. One recommendation that I have is always make sure that people that have access to a critical system, and critical system, it's your email system, just to be clear. Do it from an organizational protected device. When you open your systems to the internet, and we do because we all work remotely and everybody gets access to our email system, not everybody, all our employees, then we open ourselves to a huge risk, because that means that billions of devices and millions of hackers around the world can try until they exploit a vulnerability in our system. If instead we limit the attack surface, which means only authorized devices can access that system, we reduce the risk from 4 billion devices that can access our system and try to hack to 3,000 or 4,000, and 4,000 that are well protected. that means that it's becoming 1,000,000 times harder to attack our system. So that's another recommendation that I have. It sounds trivial what I'm saying, but most public organizations that I've seen don't deploy that method. You have access to all the employees of, let's say, the city council or the municipality or the government office from their home computers. They are not controlled, they are not monitored. And that means it's not just the home computers, but it's, as I said, 4 billion people around the world that can try to hack to your system. And if they try hard enough, one of them will be successful.
And finally, about our role as state auditors. What recommendations would you give to us? How can we effectively incorporate cybersecurity measures into our audits?
That's a good question. I think you in Israel, first, I'm not an expert about that. I'm not from the auditing field, and I think you're doing a pretty good job in Israel and in doing different levels of checks, different levels of auditing programs that do that, whether it's real penetration testing of system, which is very common, to, I think, defining standards. And I think I gave few examples from limiting the information that organizations can collect, because we know that not every organization and not every small entity can protect the data, and at the end it will be the collection of the data, to auditing and stress testing and penetration testing to larger systems. And finally, I think it's mainly asking organization. I don't think it's about spending more money. I don't think it's about getting 100 times more people like in every government or in every organization. People just say, give me more resources. It's sometimes being smarter, more integrated, having a strategy more than just, and using the right tools rather than just let's pile up more budgets and more people and hope that they work together, because getting 50 systems simply won't work together. We will never have enough people. We will never have enough integration between them. So getting the right 2 systems or 5 systems or that actually well thought of and putting the right controls may be better than just piling up too much technology around it. And I'm saying that because today we're going into large organization and seeing an organization that uses 50 different cybersecurity subsystems, it's pretty common. It's not, and 50 systems is, in my mind, it's too complicated.
Gil, thank you very much for sharing with us your thoughts, your ideas, your expertise. And somebody has a question? Okay, so thank you very, very much for your participation in our panel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shwed, and thank you, Mr. Englman. That was an excellent session. Thank you. We're going to take a 5 or 10 minute break.